Okay, so I thought we had to really after that last video. I thought we may as well talk about my political theory. Um, so I'm happy to get into it because it's interesting enough. And honestly, I'm worried about it because I don't know. It shouldn't. Before I don't. I'm worried because it would, rich people might think I've got to halt this guy. Realistically, I'd be worried about dirty tactics that would try and suppress this system because honestly, they're not for the benefit of the people. People, they're for the benefit of themselves. And a lot of people only vote those sort of political parties because they think it's a lottery and they think it's going to benefit them. But in the long run, it doesn't really represent. It's a lot of lies. It's built on a lot of lies. Honestly, a lot of foul play. But anyway, let's. And I mean, you could argue and say, yeah, but they were really good at one point. Right. You could also argue, were they? Were they? Right. Anyway, so truism, a political philosophy that I can only think to call truism. Right. Where does truism get placed on the compass? Is it like right, left, centre, or whatever? I'm not too sure, but I would like to say that it's sort of outside of a political party, and it's more of a social infrastructure in ways. And these are just implements, and they're almost like tools and devices which should technically improve any political party. Okay, so irrespective of who you are, how rich you are, where you come from, it doesn't matter. This will hopefully will improve your life. Okay, and um, people are great. You know, I don't know, whatever, like whatever you want. Like I'm sure there will be someone out there who will be happy to sort you out in some respect. Maybe, I don't know. Shit. Right. Anyway, let's not go into that. Anyway, we're talking about truism and the truest device. The ideology is to create. Right, here we go. The ideology is to create a system with transparency and reliability, autonomy and social power to one and all. Principles include and are founded on true cost non-profit organisation, an energy-based currency, standardised rates of pay through certification, and no supply and demand model and national stakes. Immediately you might be like, well, I don't want to be non-profit, or something like that. You don't have to be. For one, you don't have to be. None of this is a choice. This is choice. You don't have to abide by this. There's multiple possibilities still, as in there already are in life. There's no reason why you couldn't run a charity or whatever. It's difficult enough. But these are just because here you go. For note, this system should and can exist inside and alongside the current systems to create a reliable alternative that will gain trust and develop before potentially superseding the current social economic structure. Okay, because I feel like that's another downside. It's always one or the other, isn't it, with a lot of things. But this, it's to create reliability and to support, really. Okay, so we'll go into a bit more of these concepts because I think they sort of do tie in together quite importantly. And although alone they are good ideas, together they really do create a whole new outlook to a lot of things. Right, true cost. It seems right to me that things should cost what they cost. Right? That makes sense, doesn't it? Because where do they assume the additional money comes from, honestly? Life today seems to be a bit like the meaning of saying a word over and over again. It starts to lose its sound, the meaning, a bit like babble or something. Yeah, I've said that a lot, so I'm sort of paraphrasing that. But yeah, I've said that a few times, haven't I? This ideology hopes to affirm and reset things that we should all be able to rely on. Okay. True Cost, a non-profit organisation, takes the money out of the exploitative and gives it back to the worker and consumer because truly, who else is there? As production gets leaner and greener and self-sufficient, things will get cheaper because it's on an ever-growing technology future. In an ever-growing technological future, we want to be able to rewarded and not replaced. Goods will be established on manufacturing costs and services can be arranged. True cost should assure better pay, better prices with inclusive national effort. Right. We could go more into this because I think the cost of production is the cost of the raw materials and the cost of the employees. Okay, and realistically, everything else, all of the creation, is the fruits of the labour. Okay, and hopefully, the product is greater and then whatever you're putting in. And that's when loss comes in. If you're expending a certain amount of energy to create something which doesn't have the same applied value, because this is another thing. People say, "Oh yeah, but it's the value. It's how much people value things." I disagree. I'd say, the value is the energy value. And personal value doesn't come into the price. It doesn't change the cost of the thing. Now you say, well, how would you decide how to sell things? Well, that'll bring us to the next point. Because since when does whoever has the most money mean that they value it more? For starters, okay? So just because you bump up the price doesn't mean that, one, you even care about it, or two, you're even going to use it any better. Okay, so we'll come to that later. Energy-based currency, right? Whole new kettle of fish as well. Sorry. It makes sense to use energy as a currency. It's constant and translatable. It will be a better way to equate cost and efficiency of machine and promote greener productions, and a good way to track the transfer of produce. Much as we see machines increase production efficiency, we will also want to see the reward ourselves. Along with the true cost and non-profit, this creates a more attainable currency. Currency like currency. See, cost like cost. You see where I'm going with this? Being paid in, say, horsepower. We'll give an eye for the genuine power related across the working forces, etc. Right. Because, yeah, as I said, everything is not only related into power, but uses power, including manpower, etc. But just because you put in more effort, we'll get to that later. Okay, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't think, oh yeah, I've got to be a strong man to get paid or whatever, because that's not the case. But it's more about the energy consumed, right? And obviously we want to bring those costs down and produce up. You see, and realistically moving towards not only an ecological better future, but an economically better future. So like using green technologies and hopefully creating self-sufficient systems, would be able to have things potentially for free, whenever we like. Right, standardized rates of pay. Okay. And this is another thing which sort of links back to the energy thing. Okay. Right. Everyone, because if we're using energy, how would you not fluctuate the market, Okay, so there would need to be a sort of equation for having like a standard measure for pay. Now, you may be thinking, yeah, but I'm better off getting paid in this job where I don't do anything. But you're forgetting that the machines are doing the work for us, and the people are still doing the work. So you're potentially going to be better off in this societal system, and the proof in the pudding will be whether we can pay you more. Because if you're better in your job and you're better in your system, robbing people blind or whatever, you stay there if you want. Okay, because I'm not. This is, once again, I'm saying I'm not. There's not going to be any voting involved. I'm just going to be providing things for people as decently as possible. So everyone gets an initial stake in the currency value and the country's produce. Dependents and children are taken into consideration because everyone gets old at some point. Everyone gets sick. Everyone is the child. So that's perfectly fine, and that's my belief anyway. But once again, if you want to emulate this model and you want to say, no, I want to be selfish as possible, then potentially you are a bastard. You're sorry, but I personally think that we are things, when we create things, we're so good at making things that you can make extra and you can provide for people quite easily, and it's there is this idea of fear that, there's only enough for one person each. That's not the case. That's not the case, people. It honestly isn't. So, I do think if you're not capable of taking care of, yourself or your family, then, then you're dependent, surely. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be the case? Right. Anyway, harder work is accounted for and evaluated on many dependent factors to value the efforts and give incentives and potentially indesirable work. This this is certified, okay? Because some people would believe, one, that you shouldn't pay people at all, and I disagree, because I want to say people want to know that their work is valued. People want to know literally how much money they're coming in, so they can be on top of their sort of things, and there's that transparency there. Two, people say, oh, well, surely everyone should be paid the same. Well, that's not really the case, because some things are hard, and you do have to work hard, and you do have to get qualifications, and you do have to break your back and all these sorts of things, because otherwise people aren't going to do those things. So then it does need to be some sort of level, that seems fine. Realistically, I'm saying we're all going to be richer and happier, so it's not too much of a stress, okay? And these things there will be equation to like create this rate. Okay. This rate will give you a current share of the country's produce, because assuming all products and services are desired, necessary, the effort deserves to be rewarded rather than who has the hands on the most expensive product. Okay, so there are this does actually go into some complexities, and I believe it's pretty solid. It's pretty foolproof. Now, if you are of an economic standpoint and you're interested in disputing my model, or even trying to take it some further or anything, or just troubleshoot it with me, you're more than welcome to, because it's pretty. I reckon it's pretty sound. Yeah. Right. No supply and demand. As we were talking about, with the value stuff, right? As for things that have a true cost, they can't be sold for profit, or auctioned to the highest bidder, as that favours the rich. If things have a true cost, they've got a true cost, and that cost potentially might deteriorate and all these sorts of things. Or we'll get into that a bit later as well. Right. So, how do you sell things that are not in excess or something? Say there's a limited amount of stock and there's a certain amount of people. How do you sell that? As this favours the rich and not necessarily the most valuing person. It also creates disstability on its value and literally what? And alternately, I propose a value established points-based lottery for limited items. And that might sound kind of complex, but not necessarily, because imagine it's basically, say there's 12 people, there's 8 objects, there's 12 people. You say, well, 8 random people are going to get it, which is, potentially all right. But then someone might say, well, I do actually need it more, and I think we should take that into consideration. That should be considered, and also, the potentially, if things can't be shared and all these sorts of things. But realistically, I don't ever think richer people should have more of a chance. Do you know what I mean? They've got more money, no doubt. They've potentially done harder work. Do you know what I mean? They can buy more things, but that doesn't make them a better person, does it? Okay. So national stakes. I personally think people should actually have a stake in the country. We're members of the country. You walk around on land and you get told you're not allowed to sit here, you're not allowed to do this and that, but it's like, well, it's supposed to be our country. I'm not a prisoner on this concrete ground. I want to be, a member of this country. So I think everyone who's part of the country should have stakes in certain areas, boroughs, you know, like public areas, all these sorts of things, so that that you actually, you know, you feel like you are actually part of the country. And you actually, you know, you're literally, you own some of it. I mean, you won't technically own it, so you won't be able to go, oh, I'm going to sell it to somewhere else because I own it, I'm going to sell it. It's still owned. The country is the country, but you've got a stake in the country. Okay, not an ownership, but like a stake. Um, so, how about it? If any of the ideas included in this interest you, or you see critical improvements or troubleshooting, please contact us. Right. But more so on the national stakes, I think it's quite interesting. So you'd be able to potentially, because this is a thing, it's difficult to live in different areas of the country, and once again, none of this stuff makes sense. And it's all over expensive and doesn't. It's not very efficient. It doesn't work, frankly. And I think you should be able to apply for wherever you want to be and whatever you want and all these sorts of things. And I think this is just the most transparent and fair way of doing that. And I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone. And I'm not trying to make uh, any disagreement on, you know, things which I'm going to be potentially supplying and providing are just going to improve your life, you know. And I want that to be the case because, like I said in another video, I understand why people take over buildings because they've got nowhere else to go. But it doesn't feel right to take something which someone else has built. If we can do it ourselves and they can actually come to us and leave, or come to us and say, this is the way, you know, that's that seems to make sense in itself. So that's my political philosophy and ideology, and hopefully we can apply it to various scales of like operation, I guess, and sooner rather than later, because a lot of people genuinely do need support, and alone it's difficult to do anything. But yeah, thank you for that, and hopefully we can enjoy a better flowing, circulating future with, you know, richness and culture everywhere. And yeah, England could be a brilliant place. Thank you.